Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new here, welcome. I'm Bonnie, Old Soul Mermaid. Okay, I didn't think I was going to be here, but here I am. This is video 3 in my deck rehoming, decluttering, my whatever you want to call it. This is part 3. And I think by the time I finish filming this video and get it posted, and by the time I get all 3 videos posted, I would have gotten about, rehomed, sold to half price books, definitely sold to half price books, about 50 decks in my collection. And I'm still going. That's not to mention decks that I maybe want to sell and decks that I have chosen to give away to some people. So here we go. Without further ado, the next set of decks, and hopefully this video will be shorter than the other ones. I don't think I have quite as many decks. All right, here we go. All right, for time's sake, I'm just gonna lump these 3 together. They are the 3 decks by Gabrielle Bernstein: Spirit Junkie, Super Attractor, and The Universe Has Your Back. As you can see, these decks are all very similar. They're all by Gabrielle Bernstein, and they all, I believe, have the artwork done by Michaela Ezra, I believe her name is, and they're all, pretty much interchangeable. Now, I use the heck out of The Universe Has My Back. Early in my tarot and oracle journey, it was the first deck that I got, and then I think it was the Super Attractor, and I think the Spirit Junkie is the most current in this series. But definitely with these 2, I've had a very long relationship with. And you can tell, and you know what they are. A lot of these self-help affirmations, and I love the artwork in all of these. The cardstock is really, really nice and matte, and they're a nice size. And but I find that in my practice, I've kind of outgrown these self-help affirmations, which I really needed at the time that I got these decks and was using them. I used them a lot, especially the first 2. And they really helped, and they were wonderful, but I'm not using them anymore. And I find that, I don't need a card for a self-help affirmation. Sometimes I turn to books, or sometimes I turn to literature. And I used to have all of, well, I'm not going to say used to have, I still have them, but with these decks are going to be the companion books that go with them. All of my Gabrielle Bernstein books are going to be going to half price books, as well as the decks, because I've read them, they serve their purpose, and it's just time for them all to move on. I'm gonna lump these 2 together because they have showed up in my videos, decks that are leaving my collection, and I was pretty sure that I was gonna get rid of this one, but they've been in a sort of what a lot of tarot tubers are calling purgatory, and I have not used them it's been months and months and months and months. And so that's why they're here. And they are the Daily Crystal Inspiration by Heather Askenazi and the Crystal Spirits Oracle by Colette Baron-Reed. Now, the reason why I held on to these decks is I thought that I would use a crystal deck and crystal cards in my practice, and I found that I really didn't. And if nothing else, I thought I was going to put them on my altar. I haven't done that. I have other things that I like to put on my altar. And I find that I have some really good books on crystals, and a couple of them I haven't read yet, one of which I have. And I just find that I use a book if I want to use If I want to learn about crystals, or I have some actual crystals, if I want to pull in that crystal energy, and I don't really need cards or a deck for that. So these decks have not been used. They are beautiful, beautiful decks. And I really love the cardstock of the Crystal Spirits Oracle. Beautiful, beautiful deck, but they haven't been used. They're just taking up space, and I know somebody will just love these decks. So off they go, and hopefully somebody will buy the deck, find the deck, and be super happy about it. But they are definitely leaving this time, I promise. The next time I do maybe a deck collection video of all my decks, you won't see these. This one pains me just a little bit, or honestly more than just a little bit, but it is the Bad Bitches Tarot by Ethany. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful deck, and you know, all of Ethany's decks have wonderful energy and production values. And this was an early indie deck purchase for me early in my practice, early on. I didn't get the very first edition. This is like the second printing of it. And I loved it and used it quite a bit when I got the deck. But I found right now things have shifted inside of me, and I've hit a milestone in my life, and I find that viewing all these beautiful images of these beautiful young women, fierce young women, doesn't really vibe with me anymore. For one thing, I never felt like these women and exuded the confidence that they do. And also, I'm not a young woman anymore. And I don't see really, other than maybe there's one card, maybe two at the most, depicting someone that looks like me, or is that at my stage of life. You know, I've been here, done that 3 times over, and I've moved on. And, you know, I know nobody's going to put out a deck that reflects all, you know, people over 40. I haven't seen it, and you can let me know if there's one as far as a tarot deck. But, and I get why artists, you know, don't find that subject matter appealing. Society doesn't find aging women appealing. And it's feared. Aging is feared in Western society. And so as much as I love this deck, as much fun as I had with this deck, as beautiful as this deck is, it's time to let it go. I just don't use it. I don't feel called to use it, but I want to point out one thing, and I'll put a link up above. I did a fun video early on of the fashion in this deck, and I picked out some cards, and I picked out some of the sewing patterns in my collection, and I matched them up, and I actually have practically this exact dress in a sewing pattern. So I'll link that up above if you're interested in seeing that. Whoever gets this next, I know will be the right person for this deck. The next decks that I believe are leaving my collection are the Spirit Within Tarot by Stephen Bright and the Dream Vision Tarot. Now, you may be asking why I'm lumping these two together. Well, it's because I categorize them sort of as the same. They're kind of my palette cleansing, vector style art. And the Spirit Within right here is a mass market deck, and the Dream Vision is an indie deck. And they're beautiful, both of them. This is beautiful matte cardstock, and I've never been a fan of this glossy cardstock. It's not the most sticky, but you know, red feather decks, yeah. I love the size of it though, for somebody with small hands. It's been a great deck to work with. When you want a palette cleanser, something that's really, really easy, and especially for a beginner with a deck like this, It's just really great to work with. Stripped down symbolism, but you get what you need for the meaning of the cards. And you get the same thing with the Dream Vision, but a little bit more color and a little bit more. It's like a step up with the imagery. But I haven't really bonded with this kind of the alien figures here. There's something about this deck I just haven't bonded with it. If you saw in one of my previous videos that I recently rehomed the Mystic Mondays that was going out, and it has since been sold to Half Price Books with this same kind of, it had more vector style art, but with the bright colors of this Dream Vision. And I told you I was getting rid of that because I had these two, which I prefer, you know, and use more to that deck. But truth be told, I haven't really completely bonded with this one. And I pass this over to use other decks, and particularly one I'm going to show you. And quite honestly, I choose this other deck over the Spirit Within now that I have it. Though this has one of my favorite Eight of Pentacle cards, you know, as being a sewist. But yeah, I think I'm ready to let both of these go. And let me show you what I reach for instead of these two decks. I reach for the Seventh Sphere. I love this deck. It is very stripped down. Very stripped down. Look at the backs. Very muted colors. But if I want a stripped down palette cleansing deck, I choose this one. I love it, and it's edged in this beautiful muted blue, and I love this color palette. And I think it's because I recently realized that, you know, since my hair is changing, you know, most of the color is gone. I'm going gray. And I've realized that I've been kind of working on finding my colors for my wardrobe. I'm what they call a soft autumn. So a muted color palette. I don't have high contrast with my skin, my eyes, and my hair. And I find that I'm being more drawn to those colors, not only in my wardrobe, but in my tarot decks as well. But this color palette has a soothing quality to it. Beautiful matte cardstock. I love touching it. And if I want a simple stripped down deck, this is the one I reach for instead of the other two. So this one is staying, the other two are going. Okay, this is the Archaeo deck by Nick Bantock. It's a deck for personal archetype cards. I pre-ordered this really without knowing anything about it. The premise or the short little blurb on Amazon sounded really, really interesting. As you can see, it's a beautiful, beautiful Llewellyn deck, beautiful production. And these cards are stunning, but look how big, and I'm gonna get in a little bit. Look how big they are. Now they have, and look at these backs. They have everything artwork wise that I love. I love old art. I love collage art. In fact, I play around with mixed media and try to achieve some of these things, though I fall woefully short. But I love this deck in theory. But I find that you can't, or at least I haven't found a way or to use these decks, you know, in a divination practice. They are quite large, and basically I read the book and got what I needed from the book and found that I don't really need the cards. If that makes sense. I think they are gorgeous. I'm kind of going back and forth a little bit with this, but I I have a couple other decks that I keep for collector's purposes that I'm not going to get rid of. I don't really use, but I love the artwork, the cardstock. It all falls in line, and they're just going to be in my collection for sentimental reasons, for their beauty. This almost reaches that. I just love this, the Midwife. But no, I'm in a mindset, I just love this, where I just want to strip down my collection quite a bit and just mainly have decks that I'm using, that I'm just so excited to use and that are being used. So I believe this one is going to be going. All right, this is an indie deck that's definitely going to be leaving my collection. It is the Tarot of Unknown Shadows. Now, I've had quite a journey with this deck. And it has really largely not been good. These are the backs, and I really dig a lot the aesthetic of this deck. Look at those backs, just like they were sanded and just antiqued. I love it. But I may have talked about what happened with this deck. I did my original unboxing of this deck, and I was turned on to this deck by an unboxing on Sunset Bow's channel, Sarah, and I loved it. I loved it the first time I saw it, and I said, this is totally me, because you know I love collage decks, and I love old photography and anything old, antique, artwork or photography. Well, this deck was sent to me, the box was kind of busted up, and I'll link my unboxing up here in the cards if I remember, but the box was kind of torn and busted up. There was no plastic wrap, and it was missing a Fool card. And so I contacted the sellers, and I purchased this off of Etsy, and I think they're a Russian company or an Eastern European company, and I got no response. It took months, and it took me reporting them to Etsy before they responded to me, and it took months before I got my replacement deck. So yeah, because of the negative experience, even though this deck is lovely and it has a lot of things that I like in it, I haven't been called to work with it. I have other decks. You know, vintage collage art decks are me. I'm always going to look at them. A lot of them I'm going to buy because that's what I know I love. But I have the beautiful decks by Carrie Paris, the Relative Tarot. I have the indie and the mass market version. And I have all of Marie Bento's decks, which are those two. If I just buy collage decks or their decks from those two tarot creators, I'm a happy camper because they put everything that I love. They make, for me, for what you can do with old art and collage, they are near perfect for me. They try to be as diverse as they can with, you know, the subject matter that they have to work with, you know, the photographs and the old art. But those decks really touch the deepest depths of my soul, where this one doesn't. It's beautiful. It is beautiful, and I love it, but I can't use it and I haven't been called to use it, and I think it's time to let it go. Next, I have the Fairy Guidance Oracle by Paulina Cassidy. This is a very sweet oracle deck with the beautiful artwork of Paulina Cassidy, and I used it quite a bit with her decks, and predominantly with her decks, and I don't think I've used it with any other decks. But you see there's a keyword and you know, kind of some affirmational saying, on the bottom of the card, so you don't really need to work with this with the book. And it does come with a very sweet and thick guidebook. But I think I'm shifting away from Oracle decks. I'm being very, very picky. I've always been fairly picky with the Oracle decks that I bring into my home, but I feel that I'm moving more Oracle decks out. I have much fewer of them than I do of my tarot decks, but I find that I don't really work with them that much, and I haven't really found any new decks recently that just light that spark or that makes me want to work with it. I think the time has come for this deck for me to move it on, even though it is a super, super sweet little deck. I think, you know, I used it and I got all that I'm going to get out of it. So on it goes. Next, we have the Star Spinner Tarot by Trungles. Great little deck. Used it a little bit when I first got it, but I found this has a fairy tale vibe to it, albeit a little bit, you know, it's got a little bit of diversity thrown in. It kind of and kind of not follows a fairy tale aesthetic. I see like the Little Mermaid in here and the red shoes depicted in this deck, especially when you get to the minors. But I have other fairy tale type decks if I want, that I reach for more than this one. And for one thing, I think it has like the same cardstock as the True Heart Intuitive Tarot, though, you know, from my video about that deck, my recent video about that deck, I'm not using cardstock as the main thing to discount a deck. I love the artwork, but I don't know, something has kept me from bonding with this deck. I like it, but it's not a love affair with this deck, and I choose other decks along this vein over this, and it just doesn't get the love that it deserves, that I know somebody else will probably give it. See, here's a throw to Rapunzel here. Here we have a sweet little indie oracle offering, the Enchanted Art Oracle cards. I purchased this off of Etsy because I was looking for an oracle deck to kind of go with my vintage art decks. This is by Mimi Pettibone, and it's a beautiful little deck, and you can see it's one of these little pocket size decks. I spent my time with this deck, but again, it has these little affirmations that I find that I don't really need in a deck anymore. Love who you are. It's okay to say no, even though the illustrations are so, so sweet. Sweet vintage art. It's okay to go after what you want. It might just want you too. And see, I love this with the mermaids. Be open to new experiences. See, I don't need this in an oracle deck anymore. I did at one time, but I find that I don't anymore. So I think somebody can benefit from this beautiful little deck. It is beautiful. You are worthy. You know, I do need to be reminded of that, but I don't need a deck to remind me of that, if that makes sense to you. See, oh, love the mermaids. Oh, love the mermaids. But I think its time has come. It is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. In fact, I don't think I'm going to take this to Half Price Books. I know exactly who I can give this to. So, and I think they will be very happy to receive this. So, on to a new home it goes. All right, y'all. We are done, at least for now, with this go around of reevaluating my collection and getting some decks ready to rehome. Let me know your experiences with any of these decks. Have you been doing a massive declutter in your collection? Has your practice evolved? I think that all of us found, or many of us have found, that during the 2 years of lockdowns, we found ourselves just buying decks because it was kind of a connection to the outside world. It was fun to get packages in the mail when we really weren't going anywhere. And well, for me, a lot of it was also because I was new to tarot and I was trying to find what I like. And it's a big experiment, especially if you're starting with tarot. And then as you go along, you find out what resonates and what works for you. And even then, you know, even if you've been at it for years and years, you find that your practice continues to evolve. And what you like, what resonates, changes, and it will continue to do so because as humans, we don't remain stagnant. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and this, I guess it's going to be a series. And let me know all your thoughts. And with that, I'll let you get on with your beautiful day. Bye for now.